in the first half of March. In the first half of March, I read a total of 8 works. I read most of these books as part of the readathons that I participated in this month, Middle Grade March and March Mystery Madness. Let's get on with the books. The first book that I finished in the month of March was a picture book. I read the picture book and listened to the audiobook at the same time. It was called The People Could Fly by Virginia Hamilton. I read this book for March Mystery Madness for the prompt of reading a book with illustrations. The picture book tells a tale of African American people, about some of the people who were forced to be slaves at the time when they were brought from Africa to America to be slaves. I really enjoyed the story in this picture book. It was like a fairy tale, and it had a wonderful theme that gives hope to people in despair. Because it's a short story and I cannot connect with short works, I gave this short story 7 out of 10. I then finished Anne of the Island by Ellen Montgomery. I finally joined the Anne Alone readathon by reading the next book that I had to read for my Stacking the Series challenge. I originally planned to read this as a middle grade book that takes place in a country different from my own. I thought this was a young adult story, so I decided not to use this book for middle grade March. I'm so glad that I finally joined this readathon, and I really enjoyed this third book in the series. It tells about the budding romances between our characters. I also really enjoyed the side characters in this book. Unfortunately, in the second book, I didn't really care about the side characters. With this book, I even felt so many things towards those characters in the second book as well. So I think this book was a very successful installment of the series. And I gave the book 8 out of 10. And additionally, it was so enjoyable to read the comments in the Goodreads group. And I was really excited to write as I read the chapters in that sections. I cannot wait to read the other books in the series. The third book that I finished in the month of March was not a part of any readathons or read-alongs. It was a book that I started in the month of February, but I couldn't finish it because I had other books on my TBR to finish. The book is called The Seeker's Guide to Harry Potter by Gaia Athena Trevarthen. I have no idea how to read this surname, sorry. It was a non-fiction book about Harry Potter, of course. The book makes an analysis of Harry Potter plots and characters with myths and religions and other beliefs in the world. When I read the introduction of this book, I was very excited to read the other parts as well. But unfortunately, the other parts, I did not enjoy it as much. Although the analyses were correct and they were very on point, I find it somehow difficult to believe that J.K. Rowling, even though she clearly made the connections with religion and myths, that she would do it in such a detailed way, and I do not think that she thought of it in every sentence that she wrote, and the book gives the impression that she did. So I found the parts, especially about myths and religion, a bit far-fetched. So I gave this non-fiction book a 6 out of 10. And the fourth book that I finished was the buddy read that I did with Emily at Novel Novels, her sister Charlie at Charlie Brooks, and Gaia at Gaia Athena. The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. I read this book as a part of Middle Grade March as well. Prompt for a book with an adaptation. Although I know some parts of the book has not been adapted in the BBC miniseries yet, but I still count it as this prompt. I love the buddy reading experience with all the girls, and the fact that we all loved the book also enhanced our experience as well. The Subtle Knife is the second book in his Dark Materials series, and we all felt that it was better than the first book. It was an emotional read, as well as having many action scenes. The characters were all very three-dimensional, and I especially love the world building in these books. In order not to give spoilers, I will not say this, but there was a scene where I was like, when I was reading it, I felt like this scene would be wonderful to watch in a screen. So I'm so glad they're adapting this book as well. In summary, I gave this book 9 out of 10, and I cannot wait to read the next book. This book prepared the setting for a wonderful, even better finale to the series. The next book that I finished was a book that I did not put in my TBR. It was called Ghostspeaker by Charlotte E. English. It's the fourth book in Malay Mysteries novella series. It's actually a fantasy slash mystery series, but since I had to read 5 books for March Mystery Madness, and I used 1 book for 2 prompts in my TBR, I thought reading the next book in my ongoing novella series would be very suitable. The novella series tells the story of Conrad Savant, the death detective, who serves the god of death and tries to solve the supernatural murders. I think Ghostspeaker was the book that I enjoyed the most in this series so far, because it had emotional moments, which was really impressive considering this is just a 96-page novella. It could combine both action and character development in such a thin book. And Charlotte E. English has other urban fantasy series. So as soon as I finish this series, I think I will read more from her, because her books are quick and very enjoyable reads. Oh, I forgot to say that I decided to use this book for the prompt of wood on the cover, since it has trees on the cover. This was actually the first book that I finished for March Mystery Madness. The next book that I finished was 5 on a Treasure Island by Enid Blyton. This book I used it for both Middle Grade March and for March Mystery Madness. For Middle Grade March, this was a mystery book, of course, and for March Mystery Madness, this book had the word 5 on the title. It's also the first book in the famous 5 series, so many 5s, so it fits all of the prompts perfect. The famous 5 was one of my favorite childhood series when I was growing up, and I really liked the adventures of 4 kids and a dog, and I listened to this as an audiobook format. I liked the book and I gave it 7 out of 10, but I will not continue with this series, even though I felt very nostalgic and happy when I remembered the characters and how they reacted with each other. But I have to admit, I found the series a bit outdated in terms of tempo, language, and some of the themes in the series. So even though I have a very strong emotional bonds with the book, I have to admit it did not age well. Then I kept on reading mystery books and read The Pale Horse by Agatha Christie. I read this book for the prompt of the 5th book in a series. But I have to make a clarification. It can easily be read as a standalone book because in Goodreads page, although it counts as the 5th book in Adrian Oliver's series, Adrian Oliver is a side character in this book, and it is the 5th book that she appears in one of Agatha Christie's books. I really wanted to read this book, and I made a sort of flexible prompt. This book was very different from all the Agatha Christie books that I read before. It has supernatural hints all over the book. The mystery is based on this supernatural feeling as well. It tells the story of Mark Eastbrook, who tries to solve the mysterious deaths of people in a list. Adrian Oliver, as a crime writer, is his friend as well, and along with the police, they all try to solve who committed these murders. I gave the book 8 out of 10. At first, I could not get into the book as quickly as I did with other Agatha Christie books because it had many different viewpoints and told many different stories. And after the first quarter, these stories all started to connect and make sense, and the clever writing style of Agatha Christie of creating a very solid structure of mystery took place. I started to enjoy the book as much as all the other Agatha Christie books that I read. So I think an 8 out of 10 would be appropriate for this book. Lastly, I want to say, if you do not like detective mysteries, I think you would like this Agatha Christie book because it is very different from her other series. It's not a classical detective story. And the last book I finished in the first half of March was a Turkish book. I borrowed this book from the library, and it was our book club pick. I also did not read this book for any of the readathons or read-alongs. It's called Ayaşlı ile Kiracıları by Mahmut, Şevket, Esendal. The story takes place just after the Turkish Republic was founded in 1920s and in the beginning of 1930s. Our main protagonist lives in a old mansion house with many rooms, and these rooms are rent to many different characters. Stories of these renters are told from the point of view of the protagonist, and protagonist, who is not named by the way, forms relationships with some of the people in the mansion. I gave this book 7 out of 10. It's a good analysis of the society at those times. I like the writing style of this book. Aside from remembering some of the names at first, I did not feel confused because the stories were distinctively different, which I find very important in books with so many different characters. So even though I did not feel very connected with any of the characters, I gave the book 7 out of 10. Those were the 8 works that I finished in the first half of March. And it has been a fairly good reading month, I think. I have enjoyed most of the books that I read. Please comment down below. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned? And what did you think about them? If you are a new viewer, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye! As for Turkish word of the day, since my favorite book in the first half of March was The Subtle Knife, I thought knife should be the word of the day. Knife means bıçak in Turkish, and bıçak is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day!